Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Um, Related to bridging the achievement gap,
hmm
how would you, or how have you in your time on the school board done some concrete measures that you believe is an attempt to help bridge the achievement gap?
Okay. I think, well, there are several things. One, it has to be a priority, and it has to be a priority when it comes time to allocate resources and decide which programs you're going to use. Sometimes it's not necessarily that the most expensive program or that you can just throw money at a problem and make it better. That's not always the case. But when it comes, when push comes to shove and you're trying to decide, do we keep the AVID program with the tutors or do we not? Do we keep the program at the high school for our at-risk students that has purposefully a lower class size because that's what's effective for those students? Then that's how you need to prioritize. So I think that, actually, I know, you can look at the voting record, that this board has supported our at-risk kids, I think unequivocally, pretty much, when we've needed to. Now, in terms of finding programs that are effective, that it requires looking at some data, looking at how students actually perform in class and beyond, which gets a little fuzzier than just looking at a test, but it probably is a better read, or at least have multiple measures in what you're looking at. We've piloted a program at Montgomery for English language learners, and now I'm straddling both sides of the achievement gap. But and if that's effective, then that needs to be spread system-wide, because we don't want to just, you don't want some students performing and some students not, just because of which school they're attending. The junior highs have added a course, and I'm sorry right at the moment, remember the name that they're using at the moment, where some of the same teachers that are teaching their core courses are then teaching an additional section to help them in the courses they've had during the day. And using some of the same teachers has been important because they know exactly what's happened in the classes before, and they can see a measurable difference in student work. So we know that that's been working pretty well. At the high school, the Academic Learning Center, very new, but we're pretty excited about that. And even just the title, everyone should believe that they're capable of doing academic work, and it's open really to everybody, but of course focused on the needs of kids who need a little extra help. They're going to be using some peer tutors, and I think that's a wonderful way of enhancing student connections on campus. So that's part of it.
Okay. How about one of the things that I think people in the district are looking towards in this election is, with the tough budget cuts, is the trade-off between, our program's going to be sacrificed, or teachers' salaries going to be sacrificed, or how is the board, making their priorities in those decisions and getting a feel for, candidates.
Right. Well, I think it's pretty clear that the board's, I don't mean to speak for everybody, but I think it's pretty clear that our priorities are students. And but your priority can only be the students if you also value the people who are teaching your students, because it really, it's kind of a false choice between programs and teachers. They have a little saying, I think I have a button somewhere, that teachers are the program. They certainly are. At the end of the day, if you ask a parent, what do you really want for your kid? You want a good teacher, period. No matter what the classroom looks like, no matter what books look like, no matter how many books you have, no matter whatever else, fancy calculator, whatever, you just want a good teacher. I know that as a parent. I know that my neighbors feel that way, and everybody feels that way. But we want to be able to keep the high quality program that we have with the people who are teaching it. When we start eliminating programs, we are eliminating teachers. Those are the people who deliver the programs. So when we went to our employees this last year and said, look, because of the dire economic situation, this is the last thing we want to ask you to do, to give concessions. Nobody thinks that's a good idea. They're already not paid enough, and we're asking for concessions. But it's a choice. Are we going to pull together as the Davis Joint Unified family and make this choice together? Really, I'm on the Davis Teachers Association 2x2, along with my colleague Richard Harris, and we were invited to a DTA rep council meeting. and said, it's your choice. It really is your choice. You're saving your own, colleagues if if you decide to do the concessions. And we asked for 5 days, which is about 2.5% of the salary, and it's one time. And we hope that we mitigated with a few other things that we were able to offer that weren't tied to monetary considerations. And, but I don't want to see, I would agree with the board's decision, which I was part of, that I don't want to see whole programs disappear as long as they're effective. I mean, we're pretty much beyond the point of trimming away things that are not effective, and we've already done that. But as long as we I don't want to see programs go extinct. That's not the deal. So you have to have a trade-off, and sometimes that might mean that instead of 20 students in a kindergarten class, we have 25. And I wish it weren't that way. I've had a child in kindergarten when there were 31 or however many there were, and one at 20. So I know the difference. I know how that feels, and I would love to keep class size down. On the other hand, you will have kindergarten at 20 or 25, and you don't want to eliminate science program or the types of math classes that you're able to offer, or an art class that maybe keeps somebody interested in school. But just remember, every time we talk about those programs, they're taught by a teacher and they're supported by the support staff. So really, it's all tied together. It's not, we've made, we've trimmed as much as we can. We've squeezed administration, definitely. We're running, below the state average for sure in our admin. Personally, I think you will see in my voting record that I am pretty tight on the administrative budget, because I think we need to do that in tough times. I mean, you have to still be able to function, so you need to make wise choices. But my first priorities are the classroom and people around our, that deliver the program right there. I think that I will add this. One of our greatest accomplishments, I think, in the last probably 3 years, when we've had to make some pretty dire budget cuts, is that we've been able to prioritize and make some very difficult choices. And you have to prioritize if you're going to have any sort of strategy for maintaining the excellence in your system. You have to. And that's tough. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think that our staff and our board has had the courage to do that, to prioritize and say everything is not equal. It can't be. Otherwise, there's no leadership and there's no decisions. So I think that's been one of the hallmark of this board the last several years, is that we're willing to stand up and be, be leaders. And sometimes that's personally painful and difficult, but it's required for the good of the, for the students we're trying to serve. So I think that we've acted very strategically in our prioritization, and we've also balanced the cuts with local revenue. So we have wonderfully supportive community. Thank you, everybody. With the Davis Schools Foundation, we've supported that effort, definitely. You cannot have an emergency every year all the time, and so in an effort to stop the fire drill and to have a sustainable solution, we went out for an additional parcel tax with Measure W. And then we had, the same thing happened, massive budget cuts from the state. So now the board is actively discussing the next move in terms of a parcel tax. And our community is supportive that way. We want to have music, we want to have science, we want to have foreign language. We value, I think it's one of the reasons I love Davis, is I think our town understands the value of education. Whether or not you have a child in the school, whether or not you've ever had a child in the school, Davis believes in its school system and in its children, and understands that really the fortune of the town is linked to the fortune of the schools and to our children. So, peace.